Hey everybody. Like any other PC part, choosing a case is an important decision. There's a lot of factors that you have to take into account, such as storage capacity, aesthetics, and of course, price. As with any other part, your PC's purpose will help you decide which case has the features you need. Today we're going to be talking about Corsair's Carbide 275R, what it has to offer, and whether or not it's a case worth buying. Welcome to the middle of nowhere.
The Carbide 275R comes in your bog standard brown cardboard box. However, the foam that is protecting the case itself is not your typical foam that I've encountered in the other case overviews that I've done. Rather than being hard and crumbly, it's actually nice and soft, and I think it will do a better job of absorbing any blows taken during shipping.
The glass panel is held on by hex screws. This means you'll need to use the included Allen wrench. I wish Corsair had used thumb screws here, as there doesn't appear to be a storage place for the wrench. This poses an issue for me, as losing such a tool is a very real possibility. And there is a black border around the whole perimeter so that you don't have to see the internals frame of the case. Because the glass panel is held on simply by these hex screws and there's no bottom lip on the case frame, I do actually recommend taking it off by laying the case on its side, which I'm going to go ahead and do here and show you how to remove it. Once you have all the hex screws unscrewed, the advantage of having it on its side is that you can just simply lift the entirety up without losing any of the screws. The outside of the panel does have a film, however the inside does not. If you simply push the screws down, you'll see they'll kind of stick to the rubber grommets. And again, these do just come right off. So they're not held on to the frame of the case at all, which is a shame. So my recommendation again is to go ahead and just lay the case on its side, unscrew the screws that way, and then go put it all together with everything together somewhere nice and safe. I do wish Corsair had used thumb screws here, but beggars can't be choosers. As far as tint goes, there is a slight tint. It's nothing too major, which is a good thing. So you'll be able to see your components inside with ease. Now that we have the glass panel off, let's go ahead and go over some of the basics of the 275R. It's a mid-tower case and you can buy it in black or white. As for pricing, I've seen it range anywhere from $70 to $90 depending on the color you buy or whether or not you get the glass or acrylic panel version, or if you decide to buy the airflow version. As far as dimensions, it's 460 millimeters deep, 215 millimeters wide, and 455 millimeters in height. The 275R is made from a mixture of steel and plastic. The front panel is solid with some intakes at the sides. There's about 1 centimeter of space between the front panel and the frame itself, allowing for fans to pull in fresh air. However, I do have to say I don't feel this is very much space, but luckily the front panel is very moddable, and if you want, you can go ahead and create extra holes in the front for that much needed fresh air intake. If we flip the case over, we'll see that the rear panel is one solid piece of metal that is held on by 2 thumb screws. Simply loosen and pull, and there you go. There is no sound dampening material on the other side. And here you can see where we can put our storage, as well as the front I/O cables. Flipping back over to the front panel, so we can get a closer look at this, you simply remove it by grabbing at the bottom and pulling. If you pull straight out, it's held on essentially by little clasps here, and again, this is very moddable. There is some reinforcement plastic jutting out, so do take that into account if you're going to put holes into this thing. It is a brushed look, so it may or may not be a fingerprint magnet. Because it's not metal, you shouldn't have too much of an issue with it. At the bottom, you have a hole here. Again, this is not for intake. Instead, it is to illuminate the white LED strip that you have here. This is connected via a wire, so do be careful about that. However, should it ever fail or break, you can buy a spare off Corsair's website. Behind the front panel, you'll see a fine mesh filter that is held on by magnets, and to remove it, you simply pull from the top at an angle and pull out. Now do be careful, as these magnets are held on only by clamping force of the filter itself, so they may pop out or stick to the case itself. If that happens, I do recommend maybe just getting some super glue and gluing it to the back. Just make sure you have the right polarity for the magnets. Behind the filter, you'll see the one front fan that's been pre-installed. This is 120 millimeters. And just another close-up kind of that filter. It again is a nice fine mesh. It is metal and differs from your typical kind of plastic round circle or honeycomb affair. Speaking of honeycomb affair, that's where our top filter is. This is merely held on by magnetic strips and is just your simple run-of-the-mill circular or honeycomb filter. Flipping over to the bottom of the case, here we can see our case feet, as well as the bottom filter that only covers the PSU. This again is a nice mesh affair, just like the front. It is not held by magnets, however. Instead, it has got clips, and you simply slide it out from the back. I do like this rail system that it's on. It's much better than, say, the Cougar 330G. It's the last case I did. I'm just trying to remember the name. Or any other kind of budget case where they simply just slap in a filter that's held on by the tabs, and you have a horrible time trying to reinsert it, or even just removing it in the first place while your case is standing up. At least here, you can just reach behind your case, pull it out, clean it, put it back in, and you're good to go. The feet themselves are held on by screws that you can take out should you want to mod them or replace them with something else, and they provide roughly about 1.5 centimeters of clearance off the floor. So if you don't have room on your desk, you should be okay to put this on the floor, and your PSU will have plenty of breathing room. Flipping the case back over to the top, you'll see the front I/O is here. You have a power button, your reset switch, two 3.5mm jacks for your microphone and headphones respectively, and two USB 3.1 Gen 1 ports here. No Type-C on this case, unfortunately. Again, it was released in 2018, so it wasn't nearly as prevalent. One of the things I appreciate about this case with regards to the front I/O is that it is not attached to the front panel, so you won't have to risk yanking any wires and breaking anything on accident. Now looking at the inside of the case, the 275R supports ATX, MATX, and ITX motherboards respectively. Standoffs for the ATX motherboards come pre-installed, so if you go with a smaller motherboard, you'll need to remove some and reposition other standoffs. The center standoff right here is not an actual standoff. Instead, it's more of a guidepost or a post where you can insert your motherboard, and it will just kind of hang off here while you screw in the rest of the standoffs. Screw in the screws for the rest of the standoffs rather. So it's a nice little feature to have that a lot of cases are doing more and more lately. The two fans that come pre-installed are only 3-pin. Again, they are 120 millimeter. The 275R does come with a PSU shroud cover, which is a nice feature. There are perforations and holes where the PSU would be, so if you do have to do fan up installation, you can go ahead and do so. There are a total of 3 cable management grommets, as well as additional holes to route your cables through. 2 at the top and 1 right here. This 275R can support GPUs up to a length of 370 millimeters, and if you decide to air cool your CPU, you'll have a clearance of 170 millimeters. The front can support 320 millimeter or 240 millimeter fans. The top can support 120 millimeter fans, and in the rear you can install 120 millimeter fan. The case comes with 2 120 millimeter fans that are pre-installed, and again, these are 3-pin, not 4-pin PWM fans. If you want to liquid cool your PC with an AIO or a custom loop, you can install the following radiator sizes in the Carbide 275R. At the front, you can have one 360 millimeter or 280 millimeter radiator, or you can go with a 240. At the top, you can install a 240 millimeter radiator, and at the rear, you can install a 120 millimeter radiator. To make sure everything fits, you'll more than likely want to stick to slim radiators in all available mounting locations. Flipping the case around again, we're going to go ahead and get a look at our storage options that are available. The 275R can hold a total of 6 2.5-inch hard drives, or 2 3.5-inch hard drives, and 4 2.5-inch hard drives. You have 2 sleds here, and you can just take them out by a thumb screw that is captive on the sled, and then you'll just go ahead and screw your 2.5-inch hard drive in, and then put the sled back in, And there you go, it's installed. The other two locations are right here and here. Unfortunately, you cannot install the hard drive on the front of the case, so if you have something like a Delta Max RGB from Team Group, you're not going to be able to show off that bling on the front side. There's just not enough space in this little outdent here on the front to slip a SATA cable through. And then finally, the 275R comes with one drive caddy for your 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch hard drives. The sleds themselves are made of plastic and they have little nubs on them so that you can go ahead and insert the 3.5 inch hard drive toollessly. Otherwise, you're going to have to make use of the provided screws in the accessory kit to put in your 2.5 inch drive. Here as well are also your front I/O cables. Now, one nice thing, if you need to, about this hard drive cage is it is fully removable. Unfortunately though, it is not repositionable. So to remove it, you simply just flip your case to the bottom. Since we're already on the back of the case as it is, as far as PSU support goes, the 275R supports standard ATX PSUs up to a length of 180 millimeters. You're going to go ahead and install it via a side slip-in. This back bracket does not come out. In addition to the 3 rubber grommets for cable management, on the back of the case you have 18 cable tie-down points. This will make your life a lot easier when it comes to tying down all those cables. However, do keep in mind that at the front of the case you only have about 2 centimeters of depth, and that depth is reduced to about 1.5 centimeters towards the back of the case. Because the back panel does not have an outdent, it might pose a problem when trying to fit in all your cables from your power supply. Hopefully your 24-pin connector won't be overly thick. The PCI brackets for the 275R are all reusable. They have regular Phillips head screws for them, so you'll be able to remove them and reinstall them as you need. Additionally, you'll see on the back a little spot here for vertical GPU mounting. You'll be able to unscrew here, and these solid PCI brackets should just pop right out, and you'll be able to vertically mount your GPU. However, it does look like it's very close to the glass panel, so do keep that in mind if you are air cooling your GPU. And last, but certainly not least, we come to the accessory packages that are included with the 275R. At the outset, when you open the box, you're going to get your Ziploc bag that contains your user manual, warranty card, and of course the Allen wrench, which we'll leave in the bag. The user manual itself is, like most other Corsair product manuals, really well done. It comes with images, what you get in terms of screws and standoffs and all that good stuff, information about clearance. It is in multiple languages as well, all the pieces that can more or less come out. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it's a manual. In the cardboard box, we get our screws. Again, another Ziploc bag. And inside that, it looks like we have more Ziploc bags. So we get some one and done cable ties, so that's nice. We get long screws for our fans, an extra standoff. These are probably going to be standoff screws as well as possibly dual doubling for hard drives. Fan screws, and then small tiny screws that are probably for your 2.5 inch drives. There's a lot to take into with the Corsair Carbide 275R. So here are some things I like and some that I dislike. The 275R has ample storage capacity and it's modular. You can basically use what you need and remove what you don't. So if you don't need those storage sleds or the hard drive cage, you can get rid of them and you'll have more room for cable management as well as room for a pump or a fan hub if you need to. At the same time, you can use that cage or the sleds to put in something like a Commander Pro or the Lightning Node Pro. Finally, I like that all the storage is on the back of the case, leaving a much cleaner look on the front. Additionally, if you have a long GPU, you won't have any interference from hard drives there, or if you want to install a pump and a reservoir, you'll be able to do so on the front without running into any hard drive clutter. The accessibility and ease of use of all 3 dust filters is another feature I like, and it's something that's often overlooked. The fact that you can get to all 3 filters relatively easy when you're doing maintenance for your case is something I think Corsair nailed pretty well with the 275R. It's these ease of use features that make for a great user experience, and people will remember that. Finally, I like that the front panel is very mod friendly. Because it's flat, it's essentially a blank canvas for you to use whatever creative thoughts come to mind. Go ahead and paint a different color or paint a design on there, or just do something simple and slap a vinyl sticker on there. If you want to increase the airflow, you can go ahead and be creative and carve out a design on the front panel to suit your creative juices, or be simple and just drill some holes in or circles in or slots. Either way, should you ruin that front panel, Corsair sells spares, so don't worry. You can go ahead and replace it if you need to. Now let's go over the things that I don't really like about the 275R. Starting with, again, going back to that front panel. It just doesn't allow for enough airflow in. With that 0.5 centimeter gap on either side of the panel, your front fans are going to struggle to bring in any fresh air. There's no gap on the top or the bottom to help aid in bringing fresh air. And according to the Gamers Nexus review of the case, there's a 5 degrees Celsius difference between having that front panel on and having it off. While 5 degrees doesn't seem like a lot, this can mean the difference between thermal throttling or not when you're running CPU and or GPU intensive tasks. My recommendation for Corsair, wish they would have just extended the front panel out to allow for larger gap on the sides, and also to make holes on the top and bottom to allow for better air intake. Of course, as I just previously said, for something that I do like about the front panel, you can always go ham and drill some holes in there and increase the airflow yourself. The second feature I'm not a huge fan of is the vertical GPU implementation in the case. To me, it kind of came off as an afterthought, as if Corsair was just trying to cash in on an upcoming trend that was happening in cases at the time. Secondly, if you decide to take advantage of Corsair's vertical GPU implementation, it's so close to the window of the case that your air-cooled card will starve for air. This is a moot point if you're going to water cool your GPU. However, it will still be pretty dang close to the window, and it might make adding fittings and tubes a bit difficult as well. Finally, we come to the glass side panel. Simply put, it's horrible, and it's probably the worst thing about this case. It's difficult to remount the panel with the case standing vertically. Additionally, the possibility of losing a rubber standoff or the Allen wrench is very real. While I cannot speak to how Corsair may have revised this mounting system in later iterations of the 275R or other versions of that use the similar glass panel for this case, here are some things that I wish they would have done. One, get rid of the hex screws that require an Allen wrench. Just use thumb screws instead. Secondly, permanently affix those rubber standoffs to the case so that they can be used as pegs to hang the glass panel on while you screw it on with the case standing vertically. I think doing just these two simple things would actually improve the ease of use and the quality of using the case itself. It's these ease of use things that users are going to remember, and they might not come back to a brand once they've gotten a case, or they might just send it back altogether. Corsair's Carbide 275R is a decently priced mid-tower case with loads of features. However, it isn't perfect. If you can get past some of the foibles of this case, the 275R remains an affordable option you should still consider when looking to house all your PC components. Having said that, the price range the 275R falls in is a rather crowded one when it comes to PC cases. So do your research and find the case best suited for your needs. And that's all I have to say about Corsair's Carbide 275R. What are your thoughts on this case? If you already own one, what's your experience been like? If you're in the market for a new case, would you consider the 275R or would you go for something else? If something else, what are you thinking of getting? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that like button if you liked what you saw. Show your support for the channel by subscribing, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any future content. If you have any questions or comments, post them down below. And as always, I'm Seth, and I'll see you next time in the middle of nowhere.